fellow booktubers, my name is Laura and you're watching Dreams Books Courage, and today I'm going to be doing my June wrap-up. This month I did not finish as many books as I was hoping to read, but I'm still very happy with the number that I did manage to finish because I did go on vacation in the month of June and I was also just traveling a lot in general. So I managed to read a total of 8 books, which is not that bad. Personally, I'm very happy with the amount that I managed to complete, so let's go ahead and get into those books. So the first book that I finished last month was The Heir by Kira Cass. And for those of you who do not know, this is actually the first book of a companion duology to the original Selection trilogy. This book focuses on Prince Maxen's daughter, Edelyn, and her journey in her own form of a selection. So basically whenever you read it, it's like you're reading The Bachelorette if it took place in a dystopian world and if the Bachelorette was actually a princess. Personally, I really enjoy watching The Bachelorette, so although Princess Edelyn is not a very nice person and she's also very snobby, I still liked the plot in general. If you do not like the Selection trilogy or America, then I would not really suggest that you pick up this one. Personally, I think Princess Edelyn is even harder to deal with than America was. I really enjoyed this book, especially the minor characters, which were the boys that were participating in the selection. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I also did a book discussion on it, so I'll be leaving a link to that down below. Next, we have a book that I absolutely adored, and that is Amy and Roger's Epic Detour by Morgan Matson. I've actually read another book by Morgan Matson, which was Since You've Been Gone, and I wasn't really overly impressed with that book, and so I went into this book kind of hesitant about whether or not I'd like it, but I absolutely loved this book. It's going to be going onto my favorite shelf, and I'm sure it's going to be one of my favorite books of this year because I just loved it so much. This is basically about Amy and Roger going across the country and going to all these really unique and interesting places, and it's just a really fun trip. Within this book there are a lot of playlists, so I actually listened to those playlists while I was reading this book. And it was just a very unique experience, and I really enjoyed reading it that way. The places they went to were just so interesting, and the characters were also very unique. Not just Amy and Roger, but pretty much everyone they met had a very unique story. I really loved listening to the playlist because the music was just really good. Like, it was a great mix of 80s music and also like hipster alternative sort of music. And I just really loved that entire experience of reading this book. Honestly, I wish I would have read Morgan Matson's books in publishing order because then I think I would have gotten more out of reading Since You've Been Gone. So if you have not yet read Morgan Matson's books but you want to, I would recommend reading them in publishing order, starting with this one, then Second Chance Summer, and then Since You've Been Gone. But I just really loved Morgan Matson's writing style in this and pretty much everything about this book. I would definitely recommend you guys check this one out. It's a great road trip book, especially for summertime. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. Next is a book that I've actually been reading since January, but I haven't really mentioned it very much on this channel, and that book is Daily Rituals by Mason Curry. And this book is exactly as it sounds. It has a lot of famous people in here that are like filmmakers and artists and writers, and it was really interesting to just have a look at what their daily ritual was, and I decided to actually incorporate that in my own life as I read this. So I actually now have my own daily rituals, which has helped me a lot with time management. So I think this book has definitely had its own influence on me, and I really appreciate it for that. I actually read one daily ritual a day until I completed it, and there's about 150 in here, so it took me quite a while to do. You really don't have to read this book in order, although I did that. I think this would work great as a coffee table book and also as a conversation starter. Some of the daily rituals were really interesting, some were really weird, but overall I just really enjoyed learning about all these famous people and how they live their daily lives. I gave this one 4 out of 4 stars, and I really enjoyed my experience with reading it. Next, we have a book that came out in the month of May, and that is End of Days by Susan E. For those of you who do not know, this is actually the finale of the Penryn and the End of Days trilogy. So obviously I can't tell you a lot of my thoughts on this since this is a finale of a trilogy, but I did really enjoy it. I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. This is an apocalyptic tale about evil angels trying to take over the world. It's very interesting and creepy and fast-paced. I would definitely recommend that you guys pick up this trilogy. For those of you who have read this, I made a book discussion over it, so I'll leave a link to that down below if you want to check it out. Next up, we have The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, which, as many of you know, this is actually my favorite book ever, and this was actually my 3rd time reading this one. This time I actually read it on audiobook, which was a very unique experience, and I thought that the narrator did a very good job. So if you guys like to check out books on audiobook format, I think that this one is a good one to pick up. I did a book discussion on this one as well, so I'll leave a link to that one down below if you want to know my in-depth thoughts over it. And that is actually a non-spoilery review, so I won't spoil you on anything that happens within this novel. Of course, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. It seems like I'll always find something else to love about this book every single time I read it. It's about 2 kids. One of them, Augustus, has cancer that is in remission, and the other one has cancer that is terminal. And it's about their love story, and it is very sweet and wonderful, and John Green's writing style is amazing, so I would definitely recommend that you guys check this one out. The last 3 books are actually part of a series, and these are all part of the Maze Runner series by James Dashner. I read The Maze Runner last September in anticipation of the movie, but I never went on to read the other books even though I already own them, so I went ahead and did that. This first one we have is the Scorch Trials, and obviously I can't tell you much about this one because it is a sequel, but this one is my favorite of the trilogy. I know a lot of people have mixed thoughts on which one is their favorite. Like, I've heard every single book being someone else's favorite. But this is my personal favorite. I felt like it was more action-packed and very thrilling. Overall, I just thought it was better than the others, and I really enjoyed it. For those of you who do not know, this trilogy is about these guys that all get thrown into a maze and they don't know why they're there, and their memories are erased, and so it's kind of about them trying to figure that out, and also trying to figure out the organization that is kind of like controlling them. The writing style isn't that great, but I think the overall story is really interesting. And especially within this book, it gets a lot more intense, although there was a bit of a love triangle and I did not appreciate that. But I did really enjoy the story that happened within this one. So I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. And then I read the finale of the trilogy, which is The Death Cure. And again, I can't say very much about this, but it was pretty interesting. Although I don't really think that this book was necessary to the trilogy, I did enjoy learning more about the organization that is kind of behind everything. There were some plot twists that I didn't expect, and so I really enjoyed those. And overall, I found this to be a very interesting conclusion to the trilogy, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I finished in the month of June was The Kill Order, which is actually a prequel novel to the Maze Runner trilogy, and this one kind of explores what happened before the Maze Runner came to be. I think it takes place like 13 years before the Maze Runner, and I found this to also be very interesting and intriguing to kind of see where it all started, because I feel like something that dystopians usually don't do very well is to explain how they actually came to be, and so I think it adds a lot to the story whenever you actually know where it started, and I really enjoy that about this trilogy, that it really goes in depth with what happened. This was probably my least favorite book of the Maze Runner series, but it was still quite enjoyable, especially the parts in which we got to know more about like what happened. And so I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I wish I would have been able to go more in depth into a lot of these books, but I couldn't since a lot of them are like sequels. But I did do quite a few book discussions, and I'm leaving links to all of those down below. So if you want to hear more about these books, then definitely check those out. Also, I'm thinking about doing a Q&A for my booktube anniversary, so definitely tell me if you guys would be interested in seeing that, and if so, leave any questions you have down below. And they can be questions about my personal life, my relationship, books obviously, or just really any types of questions, so definitely leave any of those that you have down below. And now I'm gonna go get back to reading.